I am Gloria, 32 years old, a single mother with an 8-year-old daughter named Lily. We live in a small apartment in Denver where I work as a nurse at the local hospital. My relationship with my parents has always been strained, especially after they claimed they couldn't afford Christmas gifts this year. When Lily smiled sadly at their announcement, I felt my heart break. What I discovered days later in those social media photos changed everything. Before I tell you how I finally stood up for myself and my daughter, let me know where you're watching from, hit that like button, and subscribe to hear stories that might help you navigate your own family struggles. Growing up in a middle-class suburb of Chicago, I always felt like I was living in my younger sister Amanda's shadow. She was born 3 years after me, and from the moment she arrived, it seemed like my parents had found their favorite child. I noticed the pattern of favoritism from an early age, though I couldn't articulate it then. On my 10th birthday, my parents organized a small gathering with just 2 friends and ordered pizza. For Amanda's 10th birthday, they rented out an entire skating rink and invited her whole class. When I brought home straight A's in high school, my mother nodded and said, "That's what we expect." When Amanda brought home B's and C's, my parents took her shopping as a reward for trying her best. These differences continued through our teenage years. My parents helped Amanda prepare for the SATs with expensive tutors while I studied alone at the library. When college acceptance letters arrived, my parents paid for Amanda to attend a private university out of state. For me, they said, "The community college is perfectly fine and you can live at home to save money." I refused to accept their limitations. I applied for scholarships, worked evenings and weekends at a local diner, and eventually transferred to the state university's nursing program. I put myself through school without a penny from them, working so hard I barely had time to sleep. But I graduated with honors and secured a good job at a Chicago hospital. It was during my nursing residency that I met David. He was a patient recovering from a construction accident with the most genuine smile I had ever seen. Despite his pain, he made the nurses laugh and never complained. After he was discharged, he asked for my number. My parents disapproved immediately when I brought him home to meet them. "A construction worker, Gloria. You could do so much better," my mother said after he left. "He probably doesn't even have health insurance." "He works hard, Mom, and he treats me well," I defended. My father sighed heavily. "We just want security for you. Look at Amanda, she's dating that investment banker. Think about your future." But David was my future. We married in a small ceremony at the courthouse with just a few friends present. My parents attended, but stood stiffly in the background, while Amanda was conveniently too busy to come. When Lily was born 8 months later, my parents visited the hospital, but spent most of the time commenting on how Amanda would make such a beautiful mother someday. Despite this, David and I built a happy life together. We had our struggles like any young family, but we faced them as a team. Then when Lily was 4, David was killed in a worksite accident when a scaffold collapsed. My world shattered that day. The insurance settlement barely covered the funeral expenses and 3 months of rent. Suddenly, I was a 28-year-old widow, with a preschooler and mounting bills. I called my parents, hoping they might help us through the crisis. "We're on a fixed income now," my father explained. "We just helped Amanda with the down payment on her new house. Maybe you should consider moving to a smaller apartment." I was already living in a 1-bedroom apartment where Lily and I shared the bedroom, and I slept on a pull-out couch. There wasn't anywhere smaller to go that would be safe for us. With few options, I applied for nursing positions in other cities where the cost of living was lower. Denver offered the best opportunity with higher pay than Chicago and affordable housing options. Uprooting Lily was difficult, but we needed a fresh start. In Denver, I tried to maintain a relationship with my parents for Lily's sake. Weekly video calls, homemade cards for holidays. But their interest was sporadic at best. They missed Lily's 5th and 6th birthdays, claiming travel was too expensive. Yet they visited Amanda and her husband in New York twice during that same period. When Lily asked why Grandma and Grandpa never came to see us, I made excuses. "They're getting older, sweetie. Travel is hard for them." I didn't have the heart to tell her they simply didn't care enough. Despite years of disappointment, I still hoped things might change. When Christmas approached last year, I thought maybe, just maybe, they would make an effort for their only grandchild. The call came on a Tuesday evening in early December. I had just finished dinner with Lily, and she was working on her homework at the kitchen table. When my phone lit up with my parents' number, I felt the familiar mix of hope and anxiety that always accompanied their calls. "Hello," I answered, trying to keep my voice neutral. "Gloria, it's Mom," she said, as if I wouldn't recognize her voice. "Your father and I were thinking you and Lily might want to come for Christmas this year. Amanda and her family are coming too." I nearly dropped the phone in surprise. In the 4 years since we moved to Denver, my parents had never invited us for Christmas. We'd spent the holidays alone, creating our own small traditions. "Are you serious?" I asked, unable to hide my shock. "Of course I'm serious," my mother replied, sounding offended. "It's time Lily spent a proper Christmas with family. Unless you already have other plans." "No, no plans," I said quickly. "We'd love to come." I glanced at Lily, who was watching me curiously, pencil poised over her math worksheet. After hanging up, I knelt beside Lily's chair. "How would you like to spend Christmas with Grandma and Grandpa this year? And you'll get to meet your Aunt Amanda and her family too." Lily's eyes widened. "Really? At their house? Will there be a Christmas tree and presents and everything?" "Yes, sweetie, all of that." I promised already, wondering how I would afford the trip. For the next 3 weeks, I picked up every extra shift I could at the hospital. 12-hour days became 16-hour marathons. I came home exhausted, barely able to help Lily with her homework before collapsing into bed. But with each paycheck, our Chicago trip fund grew. Despite our tight budget, I wanted to bring thoughtful gifts for everyone. For my father, I found a first edition of a mystery novel by his favorite author at a secondhand bookstore. For my mother, I splurged on a cashmere scarf I found on clearance. For Amanda and her husband, I bought a gift card to a popular restaurant in their neighborhood. And for their children whom Lily had never met, I carefully selected age-appropriate books. Lily and I spent an evening making homemade cards to accompany each present. She drew detailed pictures and practiced her neatest handwriting. "Grandma and Grandpa will love these, right?" she asked, carefully coloring a Christmas tree. "They're beautiful, sweetie," I assured her, though a knot formed in my stomach. I had been building up this trip so much, and now I worried about setting Lily up for disappointment. The week before our trip, I prepared Lily for meeting the grandparents she barely remembered, and the aunt she had never met. "Grandma might seem a little quiet at first," I explained, "and Grandpa likes to watch a lot of TV, but they're excited to see you." "Will my cousins want to play with me?" Lily asked, her voice small. "I'm sure they will," I said, hoping it was true. Amanda's children were close to Lily's age, but they had grown up with every advantage. I worried they might look down on my daughter, who wore mostly thrift store clothes and had never been to Disney World. The drive from Denver to Chicago took 15 hours. We split it over 2 days, staying at a budget motel halfway. Despite the long journey, Lily remained excited, singing along to the radio and playing travel games I remembered from my own childhood. We told stories, counted red cars, and talked about what Christmas would be like with extended family. "Do you think Grandma will make cookies like you do?" Lily asked as we crossed into Illinois. "Maybe," I said. "When I was little, she used to make ginger snaps." "I hope we can make cookies together," Lily said dreamily. "And decorate the tree. Do they have a big tree?" "They usually do," I confirmed, remembering the perfectly coordinated decorations my mother insisted upon. No handmade ornaments allowed on the main tree, only on the small one in the basement. We arrived at my parents' suburban home on December 23rd. The house looked the same as always, with its neat brick exterior and carefully maintained landscaping. Christmas lights lined the roof and windows, professionally installed as they had been throughout my childhood. My mother opened the door before we could ring the bell. "You're late?" she said by way of greeting. "We expected you an hour ago." "Sorry, Mom. There was traffic around Joliet," I explained, lugging our suitcases up the front steps. "Mom, you remember Lily?" My mother glanced down at Lily, who was clutching her stuffed rabbit and looking up with hopeful eyes. "You've grown," my mother observed. "Wipe your feet before you come in. The floors were just cleaned." Lily carefully wiped her snow boots on the mat while I struggled with our bags and gift box. My father appeared in the doorway, offering a warmer welcome. "There's my girls," he said, helping me with the suitcase. "Long drive, huh? Come in, it's freezing out there." Inside the house was immaculate as always. The Christmas tree stood in the front window, at least 8 feet tall, and decorated entirely in gold and white. A fire crackled in the fireplace, and holiday music played softly from hidden speakers. "Where are Amanda and her family?" I asked, looking around for signs of other guests. My mother's lips tightened. "They called this morning. Brian has an important client meeting tomorrow that he couldn't reschedule. They won't be joining us until after Christmas." My heart sank. Amanda's family had been half the reason I'd agreed to this visit. I'd hoped their presence might buffer the tension and give Lily cousins to play with. We settled into the guest room upstairs, where my mother had set up a rollaway bed for Lily next to the queen bed I would use. As Lily arranged her few toys on the bed, I heard my parents' voices drifting up from the kitchen below. "She looks thin," my mother was saying, "and that child is so quiet. Hardly said a word." "She's probably tired from the drive," my father replied. "Give them time to settle in." "I told you we should have sent them money for plane tickets instead of having them drive that old car all the way here. What if they had broken down somewhere?" "We're tightening our belts, remember? The market hasn't been kind this year." I pulled away from the heating vent where their voices were coming through, troubled by their conversation. If money was tight, why had they invited us in the first place? And why had my mother just criticized the very thing she had supposedly wanted to avoid by not helping with plane tickets? That first evening was awkward. My mother served an elaborate dinner that Lily barely touched, too intimidated by the formal dining room and proper place settings. When she accidentally knocked over her water glass, my mother's sharp intake of breath made her burst into tears. "It's just water," I said, quickly mopping it up with my napkin. "No harm done." "Those are linen napkins, Gloria," my mother said with a sigh. "You'll stain them." Later, as I tucked Lily into the rollaway bed, she whispered, "Grandma doesn't like me very much, does she?" My heart broke at her perceptiveness. "Grandma just needs time to get to know you," I said. "She loves you, but she shows it differently than I do." As Lily fell asleep, I wondered if I had made a terrible mistake in coming. But it was only for a few days, and tomorrow was Christmas Eve. Surely things would improve. Christmas morning dawned bright and clear with fresh snow covering the ground outside. Lily woke early, her eyes shining with excitement as she shook me awake. "Mom, it's Christmas. Do you think Santa found us at Grandma and Grandpa's house?" I smiled at her enthusiasm. At 8, she was at that precious age where she was beginning to question the Santa myth, but wanted desperately to keep believing. "I'm sure he did, sweetie. Let's get dressed and go downstairs." The living room was warm and beautifully decorated, but there were no presents under the tree, except for the ones we had brought. Lily looked confused, glancing around the room as if gifts might be hidden somewhere else. My parents came in from the kitchen, my father carrying a tray with coffee cups, and my mother following with a plate of store-bought pastries. They were already dressed for the day, my mother wearing an expensive-looking red sweater with gold earrings. "Merry Christmas," my father said cheerfully. "Did you sleep well?" Before I could answer, Lily asked in a small voice, "Did Santa come last night?" My parents exchanged a glance. Then my mother set down the pastries and folded her hands in front of her. "Actually, we need to talk about that. Your grandfather and I couldn't afford gifts this year. The economy has been difficult, and with property taxes going up and our investments performing poorly, we've had to make some cutbacks." Lily's face fell, but she recovered quickly. "It's okay, Grandma. Christmas isn't about presents," she said, repeating what I had taught her during our own lean years. My mother looked momentarily taken aback by Lily's maturity. "That's right," she said. "It's about family." I swallowed hard, fighting back my disappointment for Lily's sake. "We brought some gifts for you," I said, retrieving our carefully wrapped packages from beside our suitcases. My father opened his book with apparent pleasure. "First edition, how did you find this?" he asked, examining the cover. "I got lucky at a secondhand bookstore," I said, not mentioning the hours I had spent searching or the extra shift I had worked to afford it. My mother unwrapped the cashmere scarf more carefully, holding it up to examine the weave. "It's very nice," she said without much enthusiasm. "Thank you." "I made the card myself," Lily piped up, pointing to the handmade card with its carefully drawn snowflakes. "I can see that," my mother said, setting it aside without much of a glance. I gave Lily her presents from me, then small things I had managed to save for a wrapped doll and a set of art supplies. Her genuine delight at these modest gifts made the moment bearable, but I couldn't help feeling angry at my parents. If they truly couldn't afford gifts, why not say something before we drove 15 hours to be with them? Why let Lily build up expectations only to be disappointed? Christmas dinner was a tense affair. My mother had prepared a traditional meal with turkey, and all the trimmings far more food than the four of us could eat. As she served the expensive-looking spread, I wondered again about their claims of financial hardship. "This looks amazing, Mom," I said, trying to keep things positive for Lily's sake. "It should be. The organic turkey was $30 a pound," she replied. "But for Christmas, some expenses are necessary." My father carved the turkey and talked about their plans for the coming months. "We're thinking of going to Florida in February," he said, "just for a couple of weeks to escape the worst of the winter." I nearly choked on my water. "Florida, I thought you were having financial difficulties." My mother's spine stiffened. We've been saving all year for that trip. After the stress of the past few months, we deserve a break." "I see," I said, feeling heat rise to my face. "You can afford a vacation in Florida, but not even a small gift for your only grandchild." "Gloria, that's not fair," my father interjected. "Different budgets for different things. What's not fair is telling an 8-year-old there's no money for Christmas presents when that's clearly not the whole truth," I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "Lower your voice," my mother hissed. "You're upsetting Lily." I glanced at my daughter, who was pushing food around her plate, her eyes downcast. She hated confrontation of any kind. "I'm sorry, sweetie," I said, reaching for her hand. "Mommy and Grandma just have different ideas about some things." "You've always been dramatic, Gloria," my mother said dismissively. "Always making mountains out of molehills. This is exactly why we hesitated to invite you." That was it, the last straw. I placed my napkin beside my plate and stood up. "Lily, please go upstairs and pack your things. We're leaving." "Leaving?" "But it's Christmas," my father protested. "Yes, it's Christmas," I said, "a day that should be filled with love and generosity of spirit, if not of gifts. I don't feel either one here, and I won't subject my daughter to any more disappointment." My mother stood as well. "You always do this, Gloria. Create drama and then storm out when things don't go your way. Just like when you married that construction worker against our advice." "That construction worker was a wonderful husband and would have been a far better grandparent than either of you," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "Lily, please go pack now." As Lily ran upstairs, my father tried one last time to salvage the situation. "Don't leave like this. The roads might be bad with the snow. Stay until tomorrow at least." I shook my head. "We've imposed on your generosity long enough." An hour later, our car was packed and we were on the road. Lily was quiet in the back seat, clutching her rabbit. I fought back tears as we drove away from the house, wondering how I could have been foolish enough to hope for a real family Christmas. "I'm sorry, sweetie," I said once we were on the highway. "I know this isn't how you wanted Christmas to go." "It's okay, Mom," Lily said. "I didn't like it there anyway. It felt cold." Out of the mouths of babes. My smart, perceptive little girl had seen right through the fancy decorations to the emotional chill beneath. "Where are we going?" she asked after a while. I hadn't thought that far ahead. We couldn't make it all the way back to Denver today, and most hotels would be fully booked for Christmas. Then I remembered my old college friend Tara lived about 3 hours away. "We're going to visit a friend of mine," I said. "Someone I haven't seen in a long time. Would that be okay?" "Will she be nice?" Lily asked, the vulnerability in her voice breaking my heart. "The nicest," I promised. "And I bet she'll have Christmas cookies." Tears slipped down my cheeks as I drove, but I was determined not to let Lily see me cry. This wasn't the Christmas I had wanted to give her, but somehow I would find a way to salvage the holiday. We returned to Denver 2 days after Christmas. Tara had welcomed us with open arms, setting up her couch for me and giving Lily her spare bedroom. She had leftover Christmas dinner, a tree still decorated with colorful lights, and even a small gift for Lily, a bracelet-making kit that her niece had outgrown. Those 2 days with a true friend healed some of the hurt from my parents' rejection. Back home, I tried to put the disastrous holiday behind us. I picked up extra shifts at the hospital to make up for the money spent on the trip, and Lily returned to school. We created our own belated Christmas celebration on New Year's Eve with homemade cookies and a movie marathon of Lily's favorite films. "This is way better than Grandma's house," Lily declared as we built a blanket fort in the living room. "Can we do this every year?" "Absolutely." I promised, relieved that she seemed to be bouncing back from the disappointment. I was scrolling through social media on my phone during a quiet evening shift at the hospital 3 days into the new year when I saw it. My cousin had shared photos from a family gathering at my parents' house, tagging various relatives. The timestamp showed December 26th, just one day after we had left. My finger trembled as I swiped through the images. There was my sister Amanda and her husband smiling beside the same Christmas tree that had stood bare of presents during our visit. Their 2 children were sitting on the floor surrounded by wrapped gifts. Expensive-looking gifts based on the brand names visible on some of the packaging: a gaming console, designer clothes, a drone. More photos showed an elaborate dinner that appeared even more lavish than the one we had shared. And there were my parents beaming proudly as they presented Amanda with a small jewelry box containing what appeared to be diamond earrings. The caption read, "Belated Merry Christmas with the family worth waiting a day to celebrate together." I couldn't breathe. The phone slipped from my hand onto the break room table as a wave of nausea washed over me. They had lied. They hadn't been short on money. They had deliberately chosen not to get anything for Lily and me, saving their generosity for their favorite daughter and her family. "Gloria, are you okay?" My colleague Sarah touched my shoulder, her face concerned. "You're white as a sheet." I couldn't speak. I could only point at my phone, where the evidence of my parents' betrayal was displayed in cheerful filtered photographs. Sarah looked at the screen, then back at my face. "Who are these people?" "My parents," I managed to choke out. "My sister. They told us they couldn't afford Christmas presents this year. They told my daughter there would be nothing under the tree because they were struggling financially. And then, the day after we left, they did this." Sarah sat beside me, her arm around my shoulders as I began to shake. "That's terrible, Gloria. I'm so sorry." I left work early that night, unable to focus on my patients. The supervisor was understanding when Sarah explained the situation. At home, I sat in my darkened living room long after Lily had gone to bed, looking at photo after photo of the Christmas celebration that had apparently just been waiting for us to leave. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't get enough air. My hands tingled and my vision blurred. I recognized the symptoms of a panic attack, something I hadn't experienced since the days after David's death. I tried the breathing techniques my therapist had taught me then, but they weren't working. The betrayal was too raw, too complete. "Mom!" Lily's small voice came from the hallway. She stood there in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. "Why are you sitting in the dark?" I quickly put down my phone and wiped my eyes. "Just thinking, sweetie, did I wake you?" She came to sit beside me on the couch, her warm little body pressing against mine. "You're crying," she observed. "Is it because of Grandma and Grandpa?" I considered lying, protecting her from the truth, but hadn't there been enough lies already? "Yes," I admitted. "I found out something that hurt my feelings." Lily nodded solemnly. "They don't love us like they love Aunt Amanda, do they? I heard you talking to your friend about it at the hospital Christmas party." I was stunned. I thought I had been careful not to discuss family problems in front of Lily. "When did you hear that?" "When I was supposed to be watching movies with the other kids," she confessed. "I came to find you because Jamie was being mean. You were talking to your friend about how Grandma and Grandpa always liked Aunt Amanda better." I pulled her into a hug, tears flowing freely now. "I'm sorry you heard that, sweetie. Family relationships are complicated." "It's okay," Lily said, her voice muffled against my shoulder. "We don't need them. We have each other. And your friend Tara was nice, and Sarah from your work, and Ms. Rodriguez next door who gives me cookies." Her simple wisdom pierced through my grief. We did have people who cared about us, who showed their love in consistent, genuine ways. Not with expensive gifts, but with kindness and presence. "You're right," I said, kissing the top of her head. "We have each other, and we have friends who are like family." That night, Lily slept in my bed. her small form curled trustingly against me. As I watched her sleep, I realized that the pattern of emotional abuse I had endured from my parents was now threatening to affect my daughter. I couldn't let that happen. The next morning, I called my parents. My mother answered on the third ring. "Gloria, this is a surprise. Is everything all right?" "No, Mom, everything is not all right," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I saw the photos of Christmas at your house with Amanda's family, one day after you told us you couldn't afford presents." There was a pause then. "Those were posted. I told your father we should ask people not to share photos online." Not denial. Not even an attempt at explanation. Just regret at being caught. "So it's true," I said. "You lied about not being able to afford Christmas." "It's not that simple, Gloria," my mother replied defensively. "Amanda's children have certain expectations, and her husband's family is very well off. We couldn't disappoint them." "But you could disappoint Lily, an 8-year-old who is excited to have Christmas with her grandparents for the first time." "Lily seems like a very practical child. She understood." I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. "She understood that her grandparents don't love her as much as they love her cousins. Is that what you wanted her to learn?" "You're overreacting as usual," my mother said dismissively. "This is why it's so difficult to have a relationship with you, Gloria. Everything becomes a federal case." "No, Mom, this isn't me overreacting. This is me finally seeing things clearly. You and Dad have always favored Amanda. I accepted that, but I will not let you treat my daughter as less worthy than her cousins." "That's not what happened at all," my mother protested. "We just had to make some choices this year." "Yes, you did make choices, and now I'm making mine." I hung up the phone, my whole body trembling with a mixture of anger and something that felt strangely like relief. The truth was finally out in the open. There would be no more pretending, no more making excuses for their behavior. The days following my discovery were a blur of emotions. I moved through my shifts at the hospital like a robot doing what needed to be done, but feeling disconnected from everything around me. At night, I would lie awake replaying memories from my childhood, seeing the pattern of favoritism that had been there all along. My colleague Sarah noticed my distraction and invited me for coffee after our shift. "You're not yourself," she said as we sat in the hospital cafeteria. "Are you still processing what happened with your family?" I nodded, staring into my coffee cup. I keep asking myself if I'm overreacting, if I'm making too big a deal out of one bad Christmas. "It's not just one bad Christmas, though, is it?" Sarah asked gently. "No," I admitted. "It's a lifetime of being made to feel second best, and now they're doing the same thing to Lily." "Have you decided what you're going to do?" I shook my head. "I haven't talked to them since I called about the photos. They've left a few messages, but I haven't returned them. I just don't know what to say." "You don't have to decide everything right now," Sarah assured me. "Give yourself time to process." But I didn't have the luxury of processing in peace. Lily was noticing my distress. One evening as I was making dinner, she asked, "Are we ever going to see Grandma and Grandpa again?" The question caught me off guard. "Would you want to?" I asked carefully. Lily thought about it, her small face serious. "Not really," she finally said. "But aren't they supposed to be our family?" "Family is complicated, sweetie," I began, then stopped myself. I was falling into the trap of making excuses again. "Actually, Lily family isn't just about who you're related to. It's about people who love you and treat you with kindness and respect." "Like Tara?" she asked. "Like Tara," I confirmed, "and Sarah and Ms. Rodriguez. So they're our real family. In many ways, yes." That conversation led me to do some research on family estrangement. I found articles, support groups, and books on the subject. I learned that cutting ties with toxic family members was more common than I had realized, and that many people found peace and healing after making that difficult decision. I also made an appointment with a therapist through the hospital's Employee Assistance Program. Dr. Winters listened without judgment as I poured out the story of Christmas and the lifetime of slights that had preceded it. "What you're describing sounds like a pattern of emotional neglect," she said when I finished, and now it's affecting your daughter as well as you. So I'm not overreacting, I asked, still uncertain. From what you've told me, no, Doctor, Winter said firmly. You have a right to set boundaries with people who hurt you, even if those people are your parents. But cutting them off completely seems so drastic, I said. Setting boundaries doesn't necessarily mean cutting all contact, she explained. It can mean limiting interactions to what you can handle emotionally. It can mean being very clear about what behavior you will and won't accept. The question is, what do you need to feel safe and respected in this relationship? And what does Lily need? I thought about it. I need them to acknowledge what they did, to apologize and make a real effort to treat Lily fairly. But honestly, I don't think they are capable of that. Then you have your answer, Dr. Winter said gently. That evening, I sat down at my kitchen table and wrote a letter I knew I would never send. I poured out years of hurt, disappointment, and anger. I described the pain of watching my daughter realize her grandparents didn't value her. I wrote until my hand cramped and tears blurred the ink on the page. When I finished, I read it over once, then burned it in the sink. The act felt symbolic, a release of emotions that had been trapped inside me for too long. My friend Maria called the next day. She had been away visiting family over the holidays, but had heard about our Christmas disaster from Sarah. I'm so sorry, she said. I wish I'd been here. You and Lily could have spent Christmas with us. Next year, I said, if the offer still stands. Of course it does, Maria said warmly. My mom already considers Lily an honorary granddaughter. She's always asking about her. The contrast between Maria's mother, who showed genuine interest in a child she had met only a few times, and my own parents was stark and painful. I'm thinking about cutting ties with my parents, I confessed. That's a big decision, Maria said. But from what you've told me over the years, maybe it's the right one. What about Lily, though? Am I depriving her of grandparents? Maria's response was firm. You're protecting her from people who hurt her. There's a difference. And family isn't just about blood, you know. My family would love to have both of you at our gatherings. My mom makes enough food for an army anyway. The idea of a chosen family, people who genuinely wanted us in their lives, was appealing. Maybe that was the answer, not clinging to relationships that caused more pain than joy. As January progressed, I thought deeply about what I wanted for Lily and myself. The more I reflected, the clearer it became. We deserved better than what my parents had offered us. One evening in late January, after Lily had gone to bed, I sat down at my computer and opened my email. I had been avoiding my parents' messages, but it was time to respond, time to take action, rather than simply reacting to their behavior. I started typing, deleting, and retyping several times before I found the right words. Dear Mom and Dad, I've been thinking about our relationship for some time now, and the events of this Christmas brought many issues into sharp focus. The discovery that you told Lily and me you couldn't afford gifts while holding an elaborate Christmas celebration for Amanda's family the very next day was deeply hurtful. But it was also clarifying. This incident is part of a pattern that has existed throughout my life. While I have come to terms with your preference for Amanda, I cannot and will not accept you treating Lily as less deserving of love and consideration than her cousins. After much thought, I've decided that we need to take a step back from this relationship. The consistent favoritism and dishonesty are harmful to both Lily and me. I need to protect my daughter from experiencing the same sense of unworthiness that I grew up with. This isn't a decision I've made lightly or in anger. It comes from a place of self-respect and maternal protection. We're done. Please do not contact us. Gloria. I read it over once more, then clicked send before I could change my mind. As soon as the email disappeared from my screen, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I had finally said what needed to be said. Next, I blocked their phone numbers and unfriended them on social media. I wasn't interested in half measures or prolonged arguments. This was a clean break. As expected, they tried to reach me through other channels. My aunt called to say my mother was upset. A family friend emailed to suggest I was being too harsh. I didn't respond to any of these messages. This wasn't about punishing my parents or creating drama. It was about setting a boundary that should have been set long ago. The only family member whose message I did respond to was my father's sister, Aunt Susan. Unlike the others, she didn't try to convince me to reconcile with my parents. I understand more than you know, she wrote. My relationship with your father has always been complicated. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. No pressure, no judgment. I appreciated her respect for my decision and arranged to have coffee with her when she visited Denver for a conference in February. She turned out to be a wonderful listener and shared some of her own experiences with my father's tendency to play favorites. It's a pattern that goes back generations in our family, she explained. Your grandfather did the same thing to your father and me. It doesn't make it right, but it might help you understand it's not about you. It's their damage, not yours. With my parents no longer in our lives, I had space to strengthen other relationships. Maria's family embraced Lily and me, inviting us to Sunday dinners and family celebrations. My colleagues at the hospital, especially Sarah, became a support network I could rely on. We began creating new traditions. Instead of feeling obligated to travel for holidays, we could choose what felt meaningful to us. For Easter, we joined a community egg hunt in the park near our apartment. Maria invited us to her family's Memorial Day barbecue. When summer came, we took a weekend camping trip with Sarah and her children. I also started therapy sessions for Lily with a child psychologist who specialized in family dynamics. Dr. Taylor used play therapy to help Lily express her feelings about our family situation. Lily is remarkably resilient, Dr. Taylor told me after several sessions. She has a strong sense of self-worth, which I credit to your parenting. She's sad about her grandparents, but she doesn't internalize their behavior as a reflection on her value. That was the greatest relief, knowing that my daughter hadn't absorbed the message that she was somehow less deserving of love. I had broken the cycle. Financially, our situation improved slightly without the strain of traveling to see my parents or buying gifts they didn't appreciate. I was promoted to charge nurse, which came with a modest raise. We were able to move to a slightly larger apartment in a better school district, a fresh start, that symbolized our new beginning. The most unexpected benefit of cutting ties with my parents was the freedom I felt. I hadn't realized how much energy I had been expending trying to win their approval, making excuses for their behavior, and managing my expectations. Now that energy could be directed toward building a happy life with Lily and nurturing relationships that were actually reciprocal. A year passed since that fateful Christmas. The holidays were approaching again, and for the first time I felt no anxiety about family obligations or expectations. Lily and I had planned our own Christmas celebration, complete with volunteering at the Children's Hospital, where Sarah's daughter had been treated for leukemia the previous year. Then in early December, an email arrived from an address I didn't immediately recognize. It was from Amanda. Gloria, she wrote. I've been wanting to reach out for months, but didn't know what to say. What Mom and Dad did last Christmas was inexcusable. I didn't know they had told you they couldn't afford gifts until after the fact, or I would have said something. I'm not asking you to forgive them or reconnect, but I was hoping we might talk. My number is below if you're willing. I stared at the message for a long time, uncertain how to respond. Part of me was angry at Amanda, too, for accepting preferential treatment all these years without questioning it. But another part recognized that she had been a child herself when the pattern was established, just as I had been. After thinking it over for several days, I texted her. We arranged to meet for coffee when she would be in Denver for a business trip the following week. I decided not to bring Lily, not wanting to expose her to potential disappointment if the conversation went poorly. Amanda looked much the same as I remembered, though more tired around the eyes. She hugged me awkwardly when we met at the coffee shop, then sat across from me, clutching her cup nervously. Thank you for meeting me, she began. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't, I admitted. But I figured after 32 years we deserve at least one honest conversation. Amanda nodded. I owe you an apology. I've known for years that Mom and Dad treated us differently, but I never said anything. It was easier to accept the favoritism than to question it. Why now? I asked. What changed? Everything, she sighed. My perfect life isn't so perfect anymore. Brian lost his job last spring, and suddenly Mom and Dad started treating us differently too. Not as badly as they treated you, she added quickly. but enough that I finally understood a fraction of what you've experienced. I'm sorry about Brian's job, I said sincerely. That must be difficult. Amanda shrugged. It's been a wake-up call in many ways. We were living beyond our means trying to keep up the image of success. Now we're downsizing, and honestly, it's a relief. But the way Mom and Dad reacted, she trailed off, shaking her head. Let me guess, I said. Suddenly they're less interested in your family now that you can't provide the affluent grandchildren experience. Something like that, Amanda confirmed. They made it clear that they're disappointed in Brian. They've pulled back financially, which is fine, but there's this undercurrent of judgment now. Like we've failed them somehow. I nodded, familiar with that feeling. Welcome to my world. I can't believe I never saw it before, Amanda said, looking genuinely remorseful. Or maybe I did but didn't want to acknowledge it. Either way, I'm truly sorry, Gloria. You and Lily deserved better. Yes, we did, I agreed. So, what now? Are Mom and Dad aware you're meeting with me? Amanda shook her head. No. They still talk about you sometimes, but mostly to complain about how unreasonable you're being. They've rewritten the whole Christmas story in their minds. Now they claim they told you in advance there wouldn't be gifts and you came anyway expecting special treatment. I laughed without humor. That sounds about right. They've never been able to take responsibility for their actions. I know, Amanda sighed. I'm starting to see that many of our family dynamics aren't healthy. Brian and I have started marriage counseling, and it's opening my eyes to patterns I never recognized before. We talked for nearly 2 hours, sharing perspectives on our childhood that we had never discussed before. I learned that Amanda had her own insecurities growing up, feeling pressured to be perfect to maintain our parents' approval. She learned how deeply their favoritism had affected my self-worth. When we finally said goodbye, I felt a tentative connection that hadn't existed before. We weren't suddenly best friends, but there was a foundation for a possible relationship in the future, one based on honesty rather than competition. I'd like to meet Lily someday, Amanda said as we parted. When you think she's ready and if you're comfortable with it. Maybe, I said, not making any promises. Let's see how things go between us first. As Christmas approached, I reflected on how much had changed in a year. The pain of last Christmas had transformed into something valuable, the courage to set boundaries, the wisdom to recognize toxic patterns, and the freedom to create a life defined by genuine love rather than obligation. On Christmas morning, Lily and I woke early to volunteer at the Children's Hospital. We helped serve a special breakfast to the young patients who were well enough to come to the activity room and distributed small gifts to those confined to their beds. Seeing the joy on those children's faces, despite their illnesses, put everything into perspective. This is the best Christmas ever, Lily declared as we left the hospital. Can we do this every year? Absolutely, I promised. We joined Maria's family for Christmas dinner that afternoon. Her parents welcomed us as if we'd always been part of their celebrations. Maria's mother insisted on sending us home with enough leftovers to last a week, and her father slipped Lily an envelope containing tickets to the Natural History Museum, her favorite place in Denver. Back in our apartment that evening, Lily surprised me with a gift she had made with help from her art teacher, a handmade memory book filled with photos and mementos from our life together. See, Mom, she said, pointing to a page with photos of us, with Maria's family, Sarah, and her children, and Tara, during her last visit to Denver. This is our family, the people who really love us. Tears filled my eyes as I hugged her. You're absolutely right, sweetheart. As Lily fell asleep that night, I thought about how far we had come since last Christmas. By saying we're done to a toxic relationship, I had opened the door to healthier connections. By letting go of people who couldn't love us properly, I had made room for those who could. Family, I had learned, isn't defined by DNA. It's created through love, respect, and mutual care. Sometimes the family we choose is more nurturing than the family we're born into. And sometimes the bravest thing we can do is walk away from relationships that diminish us, even when those relationships are with the people who are supposed to love us most. The grief of family estrangement never completely disappears. There are moments when I still mourn the relationship with my parents that might have been. But that grief is outweighed by the peace that comes from honoring my own worth and protecting my daughter from the pain of conditional love. I've learned to trust myself as a mother and as a person. I've discovered that I am enough exactly as I am. And I'm teaching Lily that she is worthy of unconditional love, that she never has to earn affection or acceptance. Perhaps that's the greatest gift I could give her, far more valuable than any present that could be wrapped and placed under a tree. The knowledge that true family, however it's formed, is about love that doesn't come with conditions or comparisons. Have you ever had to walk away from toxic family relationships for your own well-being? How did you navigate that difficult decision? I hope sharing my story has given you some comfort if you're facing similar challenges. Remember that choosing your own happiness isn't selfish. It's necessary. Please like this video if it resonated with you. Subscribe for more stories about finding strength through difficult times, and share with someone who might need to hear this message today. Thank you for being part of my journey, and I wish you the courage to create the family you deserve, whether by blood or by choice.